square 10.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Dennis. The older I get, the more I think of the German saying, you get too soon old and too late smart. But there's one thing I realize, is that confession is good for the soul. And I have a confession to make. The happiest years of my life have been spent in the arms of another man's wife. My mother. God bless mothers. What would we do without them? I owe my life to 2 women and 1 man. My mother, my father, and my grandmother. She made a really difference in my future. For I was born 1926, Brooklyn, New York, on Mother's Day. But I was born dead. And they put me in yesterday's newspapers, and they placed me in the bathtub. My grandmother came in a short time later and said, "Where's the baby?" And the doctor said, "The baby is dead. Best you not see him." But she was familiar with babies. She had 13 of them. And she brushed aside the doctor and went to the bathroom, into the bathtub, lifted me out of there and said, "Look, he's breathing." And I've been breathing ever since. And she made a real difference in my future and in the woman I married, because we had 8 children. And also in the 8 children's future, because we now have 20 grandchildren. Mothers, when they make a choice for life, they really make a difference. And you know, when I think of a mother, I think of Mother Teresa, although not a biological mother. She's mother to thousands of people all over the world. And one time she was being interviewed by Malcolm Muggeridge. She had just taken a baby out of the garbage bin in Calcutta, India. And Malcolm said to her, "I know you sisters do a lot of good work, but with all this poverty and everything, does it really make a difference?" And Mother Teresa lifted up that baby and she said, "Look, there's life. It makes a difference to this baby." And it makes a difference what you or I do or what you or I don't do. And this was really brought home to me by a story in the book Living, Loving, and Learning by Leo Spascali. He told of a student that came and gave him a poem and said, "You can use this, but leave my name out of it." And this is what she said. The poem was things you didn't do. Remember the day I borrowed your brand new car? I dented it. I thought you'd kill me, but you didn't. And remember the time I dragged you to the beach and you said it would rain, and it did? I thought you'd say, "I told you so," but you didn't. Do you remember the time I flirted with all the guys to make you jealous, and you were? I thought you'd leave me, but you didn't. Do you remember the time I spilled strawberry pie all over your car rug? I thought you'd hit me, but you didn't. And remember the time I forgot to tell you that the dance was formal and you came in jeans? I thought you'd drop me, but you didn't. Yes, there were lots of things you didn't do, but you put up with me, you loved me and protected me. There were lots of things I wanted to make up to you when you returned from Vietnam, but you didn't. And what we do now really makes such a difference. Lena Horne, the great entertainer, put it in these words. She said, "Don't send me flowers at my funeral. Send them now when I can smell them." It makes a difference when you send the flowers. And it reminds me, making a difference, of a man who was walking down the beach in Corpus Christi, miles of beach, and he saw this little girl throwing things in the water, picking something up and throwing it in the water. And As she got closer, he said, "What are you doing there?" And she said, "I'm picking up these starfish, and I'm putting them in the water because otherwise the sun will bake them and they'll die before the tide comes in." As he looked down, he saw thousands upon starfish, and he said, "Really, what difference does that make?" And she says, "It makes a difference to this one." And it makes a difference not only to one, it makes a big difference what you do and what I do. There's a little quote from Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, and it's very thought-provoking, so I want to read it very slow. He says, "The great events in history are at bottom profoundly unimportant. The essential thing is the life of the individual, you and I. Here alone do the great transformations first take place. And the whole future, the whole history of the world, ultimately springs as a gigantic summation from these hidden sources in individuals." In other words, what you do, what I do, we're actually changing the world. And my Irish grandmother, who is dead, but she is still changing the world because she made a difference in my life, my children's life, and my grandchildren. She used to tell the story of an Irish comedian who, in vaudeville days, used to end every skit with these words: "Live each day as if it were your last, and someday you'll be right." Mr. Toastmaster.
Great. And then